Next we have economic factors. Now, the general economic condition in a country should be the starting point of any opportunity and threats analysis. Economics also determines the spending patterns of consumers. When there are periods of growth, fewer people are unemployed and the interest rates are low, which means people spend more money. There we go. Example, in 2006 when it was very good economically, most of South African retailers recorded record sales because people were just spending. For example, car sales hit nearly 715,000 in 2006. Okay, that's up 40% from 2004, which means that a lot of people were buying cars during that time. However, just soon after that, in 2008 and 9, the economy slowed down dramatically because of the recession. Car sales hit their lowest since 1999. People were not buying anymore. Okay? So marketers regard favorable economic conditions as a good time to execute their marketing plans. When the economy is good, marketers want to get their plans out, get their sales promotions going, get people buying. Economic elements of greatest concern to marketers is inflation, recession, interest rates, and currency fluctuations, and we're going to look at all four of those now. Inflation. Inflation manifests when prices increase but people's wages don't. Okay? Prices increase of products but people's wages don't, which means they have to buy the same products, or at least they have the same amount of money, but now they have to buy the same products that are at a higher price, which basically means they can buy less because they don't have enough money to buy what they used to. Therefore, there's decreased purchasing power. Low inflation obviously benefits marketers because people then have more money to spend. Okay, let's look at the average inflation per year for South Africa. As you can see, in 1969, it was quite low at kind of 3%. Then it skyrocketed in 1975. It just went up. 1975, it reached a high of 14%. Then it went down a bit and eventually went up very high to 15% in the 80s, early 80s, and in the late 80s went extremely high to nearly 20%. That is huge. As you can see, it's been falling ever since, except in 2008 and 9, it went high again because of the economic recession, back up to 12%, and has now been coming down steadily back down to 5%, and hopefully it can come down even further, back down to 3%, which is a good amount. Okay, here's another example of inflation. Wages is the little dandelion, and all the expenses are the bulls that are just going to crush the little dandelion. That's why he's saying, oh dear. Okay, so it's when you don't have enough wages to cover all the expenses. Okay, in times of high inflation, businesses will often seek to increase their profit margins by increasing their production efficiency. Okay? Because if they increase prices too high, consumers won't purchase, so they have to try and save money by making their production processes more efficient. Okay, so an example is that although inflation reached nearly 11% in 2008, Comair, which runs British Airways and Kalula, kept their airfares competitive and still made a profit of more than 32 million rand. Okay? Probably because they still wanted people to continue to fly even though there was a recession. In South Africa, the value of the rand has an important influence on inflation. When the rand becomes stronger, the cost of imported products declines. Okay, it means it costs less to buy products from other countries. And therefore, so does the prices of retail products, and therefore also inflation decreases. So when the rand is strong, it's very good for inflation. If the rand is not so good, inflation will also increase. Okay, so when prices increase over a long period of time, okay, and also from the rand going down, wage increases are too high. In other words, companies can't afford to increase wages that much, and so the interest rates will start to rise, and so consumers will also stop spending because interest rates are too high. In other words, they won't buy big things like that they need credit for. Okay, here's another picture of inflation and the rising of prices. As you can see, the guy who is the water level is what's rising, but the guy who is a high income person has something to stand on. He also has a nice big umbrella and a life raft, right? So he can survive when prices are rising. The middle income person can also survive because, but he still feels it. He does feel it. He's there in the water. He's got to cut back on some costs. But the low income person, they just drown because they can't afford food during that time. There's nothing to cut back on. They've already cut back on everything. It's not easy to be a low income person when prices are rising and inflation is very high. In fact, some people die. Lack of food, lack of medical care, things like that. In order to cope with inflation, a number of pricing strategies can be implemented, and we'll cover more of those in chapter 13. Now, inflation can cause people to either build or diminish their brand loyalty. Either they'll stick to certain products, which they believe in, or they will swap to cheaper products. And they will often, search for cheaper purchases. In 2008 and 9, for example, people switched from rice to maize because maize is more affordable. So the maize companies were doing well, but the rice companies like Tastic were not. There we go. Tiger Brands who owns Tastic, they reported sharp fall in sales of Tastic. Consumers also bought less chocolates, which are more expensive, and bought more jelly sweets because they're cheaper and they last a little bit longer. However, even during times of high inflation, consumers will still try to maintain their standard of living because, they still want to live there. They still want their luxuries. Therefore, marketers will try to encourage brand loyalty. This guy is very brand loyal. This is an advert by Apple. I think it's on his wedding day. He's pulling his shirt open and showing his Apple tattoo. That's how loyal he is to Apple. So companies will try and encourage people to stay loyal to their brands, even during recession times. And they'll do so using loyalty programs like Pick and Pay Smart Shopper, right? And keep people loyal. And they'll emphasize value for money. You're getting value for money. You might be paying a high price, but it's worth it. Keeping prices as low as possible. They don't try and increase prices during this time. You can keep the prices the same, but just don't increase them. And making sure that all price increases, if you do increase your price, you need to really explain why. It needs to be well justified. Okay. It's important that during inflation times, even though the seller's costs might increase, also because they are also hit by inflation, the buyer will simply just not pay more for a product than they believe it is worth. That's important. So it's no point increasing your price. Even though your costs are increasing, it's no point increasing your price beyond what people are willing to pay. There must be other ways to cut costs rather and keep prices low. An increase in price will always reduce demand. That's 101 of economics. So most marketers try to postpone their price increases as long as possible. Even after the recession, they try and, or after inflation decreases, then they'll only increase their prices, or try to at least. Some will reduce product quality and size. This is something called hidden price increase. I'll show you an example. Okay, now you see that packet over there. It's a packet of something. I'm not sure. It's from a different country. But can you see it's 454 grams. Okay? Let's say the price is 10 Rand or 20 Rand. Okay, let's say it's 20 Rand for 454 grams. Now, what companies do during such times where they can't really increase the price is they will lower the amount but keep the price the same. So you can see there it's reduced to 400 grams from 454. What they'll also do is they'll keep the package the same so it doesn't look like anything has changed to the customer. The customer doesn't realize that they're getting less, because the price is the same and the package is the same size, but there's less inside the package, which essentially means that the customer is paying more than before, but they don't realize it. It's called hidden price increases, and it's a very clever way. It's legal. It's a very clever way to cope with inflation and increasing costs without, influencing the customer's perceptions too much. Sure, if they're clever consumers, they'll figure it out, but most are not. Okay, here's some example words related to recession: troubles, price climb, inflation, nightmares, hardship, shake-up. Okay, recession is a period of economic activity when income, production, and employment falls. This reduces the demands for goods and services. During such times, consumers change their consumption patterns because they just don't have money. They buy basics rather than luxuries. They'll count their cents. And they become much more price sensitive. They look for bargains. During such times, retailers will often capitalize by aggressively promoting their house brands as value for money. Remember, because often the house brands are cheaper. Instead of buying the branded rice from Tick, you can buy the no-name, the house brand, Checkers house brand rice. Pay less. So Checkers will promote these brands during times like that as money savers, and obviously Pick n Pay's no-name brand similar. Motor vehicle dealers will also offer financing deals at no interest. There we go. 0% financing for up to 63 months. That's very good. It means that you're not paying any interest. You're paying your normal, you got to pay off the car, but there's no extra money that you're having to pay. Okay, strategies during recession include improving existing products and introducing new ones, making products at a reduced cost, streamlining the production process, maintaining and expanding customer services. Instead of getting people to buy a new car, offer them services which will fix their cars for them during that time, by offering replacement parts and so forth. Very clever. Still make money from people fixing their cars. You can emphasize product value. Customers will always see quality, durability, and time and money saving. So you can stress, hey, our product is going to really help you. Yes, you're paying a premium, you're paying a high price, but this is how it's going to serve you. And then use special offers to stimulate demand, sales promotions, free offers, bundled deals, longer payment terms, things like that. And lastly, target new market segments. Find other people that will buy your product. Maybe try and export to companies that are not experiencing to countries that are not experiencing a recession. Okay, then we've got interest rates. Interest rate hike is when the interest rates increase, and you experience slower inflation and lower economic growth. And then interest rates, when they are cut, you experience higher economic growth because people are buying more. They're buying more houses because the interest rates are much lower. Okay, the interest rate is the rate at which banks lend money to individuals. So it's usually like 7%, 8%, 9%, 10%, and it's usually based on the amount or the rate at which the Reserve Bank lends money to the other banks. A high general interest rate reduces consumers' disposable income because now they have less money because there's more interest that's being placed on the money. Right, they have to pay more for their home loans and for their credit cards and so forth when their interest rates are high. So higher interest rates will reduce the demand for goods and services, and therefore marketers appreciate more environments where there are low interest rates because people then have more money and they can make more sales, which means more profits for the business.